Hello everyone, this is Paul the Oaken Knight, coming to you with a review of the recently released tabletop version of Skyrim, the adventure game. Today I will give you my thoughts as to the pluses and minuses of the game and its design and implementation. Because my copy was one of the 200 US shipments that were delayed until after the new year, and yes, I received the $50 coupon from Modifius, I am weighing in a bit late, but that doesn't mean that I'm without an opinion. So let me give you my thoughts about the game, but because so much has already been done describing how the game is played, I will skip over that part and go straight into what I think of it. First, the good stuff. Skyrim in a box. Yep, the game is definitely Skyrim in a box and does an excellent job of giving you the feel of the computer version. It is primarily a quest-driven character development game done at the strategic level, with a simple yet interesting tactical system for combat. In some ways, the game turns Gloomhaven on its head, as that game gets at character development through its laser focus on tactical encounters and really very little on strategy. If there's a weakness in Gloomhaven's design, and that's a big if, it is the barely there feel of an overall strategy that offers meaningful choices to the player. Not so in Skyrim, as players are faced with a continuous flow of strategic choices as they travel throughout the entirety of the province. The game does an uncanny job of replicating the Skyrim feel of the computer game. Players who are expecting Skyrim to be Skyrim will be very pleased with the game. Skyrim supports gameplay from 1 to 4 players in the base game and up to 8 players with an expansion. Solitaire play is a vitally important aspect for many gamers, me among them. I actively avoid titles that are not at least solitaire friendly, just because I know they will become mere dust collectors on my game shelf. Now, does that mean that I only play purpose-designed solitaire games? Far from it. But you will never hear me talk about games that have mechanics that just do not work in solitaire play. Put so-called block games in that category. Skyrim has but one rule change that enables very satisfying solitaire play. Each turn, the so-called first player draws an event card to begin the turn. In Skyrim, event cards subtly push play forward to a chapter resolution. It provides a firm but gentle push on the back of your shoulders, nudging you deeper into the scenario, but without an overriding shove, such as done with the campaign in Mage Knight. But without other players to help you, the event cards would move the game along too fast for you to cope with. So instead, solitaire players pick an event card every other turn to slow the game's pace down to a reasonable level. That's it. You now know all the solitaire-specific rule changes for playing Skyrim as a solitaire player. Solitaire play is very satisfying, with each chapter playable in a relaxed evening and an entire campaign in 3. Regarding multiplayer, I think the game would work fine with up to 4 players, but even with the expansion supporting up to 8 players, I think it would bog down with over 5. Your mileage may vary. Co-op play. Skyrim is a cooperative game. Players assume the role of a single character, each with 3 different strengths that in theory allow them to play differently from one another. Players may choose to combine forces to go after particularly difficult objectives, but most often will pursue their own personal quests as they strengthen themselves to take on their own unique main quest. A main quest is assigned to each player at the start of every chapter. It typically involves solving a chain of quests until the player gets to the final link in the chain. Not until all players get to their final link in their own personal main quest chain can they finish their current chapter in the campaign. Players generally win together or lose together, so there is strong incentive to help a struggling player catch up. Skyrim, the board game, is a more social game than its computerized father. It is a game where players may spend tens of hours playing together rather than hundreds of hours playing alone. Last weekend, my friend and I played 2.5 chapters of the first campaign and something over 12 hours. Yeah, this old dog still has some hunt left in him. But Skyrim, the board game, is tailor-made to bring gamers together around the table for however much time they choose, chucking dice, killing monsters, and solving Skyrim's problems one chapter at a time. In this sense, the game fully achieves what the designer intended. With the DawnGuard expansion, you can, at your option, play a competitive game where one side plays the vampires trying to corrupt the world and the vampire killers trying to save the world. How cool is that? And now, the opportunities for improvement. The rules. Rules completeness and clarity are Skyrim's biggest weakness. While the main line through the rulebook is okay, players are routinely confronted with a special case or symbol that is simply undefined or unexplained by the current rules. For example, the back page of the rules contain the symbols that substitute for words in both the rules and on the cards. But there is no symbol for the symbol printed on the general equipment, and no explanation of how this equipment differs from a bee treasure, an A treasure, and dragon treasures, each of which do have their own symbol that appears on the back of the rulebook. As with Stellar Horizons, the game is being saved by clarifications on YouTube and Q&A on Board Game Geek. Players should understand that some additional rules research may be needed outside of the game, but the good news is that the game is garnering sufficient support. With a little gumshoe work and some common sense, most players, I believe, will figure it out. Components. Skyrim's components all suit their purpose. Some, such as the map, do so with gusto. But I noticed a comment on Board Game Geek noting that, for a game with Skyrim's price tag, it has components that are less than outstanding in some cases. I thought about what the author was saying, and I find that I'm in at least partial agreement. The map. The map portrays Skyrim right out of the computer game. It features an eggshell finish mounted beautiful rendering of the province that I can find no real fault with. The only issue is that the game has many stacks of cards that might have found an on-map home if it had been made just a little bit bigger. As it is, the card stacks are placed off-map around its periphery. Player mat. Each player has a sort of player mat that is two laminated pieces of thick cardstock. In my case, as well as with my friend's copy, the boards have a noticeable bow up on the ends, making them somewhat fussy to use. They also have small boxes that contain the really small counters representing each of the 3 game resources, gold, and experience points. The counters are printed two-sided with either a 1-point or a 3-point version of the counter, and given their small size are pretty easily flipped without noticing. While fully playable, the player mat would have been much improved if they were larger neoprene mats with holes cut through, such as with Too Many Bones, that could hold a count for the various resources rather than the resources themselves. The teensy counters could then all be ditched. Cards. The cards are all very good, but not excellent quality. To me, excellent cards have the linen finish, such as in Mage Knight. Skyrim's cards have a semi-gloss finish and are made of good cardstock. They are very good, but with one caveat. Most cards are standard sized and fit perfectly into the appropriate card sleeve of your choice. Both Ultramat and Titan Shield work fine. There are also a few tarot-sized cards that fit perfectly into appropriately sized sleeves, such as are used in War of the Ring. But the mini cards are definitely too large for the American standard minis and somewhat too small for the European minis. I opted to leave them unsleeved. The linen finish would have been helpful with these. If any of you guys have found sleeves that really do fit these, let me know. Let everybody know. Put a comment out there so we can take a look. The counters. The game counters are fine, but the black and white threat tokens are an exact match for what is printed on the map. Part of their function is to be placed on the map to degrade the various strongholds in Skyrim, and because they almost perfectly match what is printed on the board, they tend to disappear from sight. It would have been much better if the printer used some color other than white so they would stand out. It is what it is, though. Instead, I opt for using my red tiddlywinks, which stand out and are the perfect size. A little Yankee ingenuity goes a long way, so does some attention to detail when publishing what is a fairly expensive game. If you have noticed, I have substituted my own minis for the wandering monsters that appear on the game mat. A few years ago, I bought a small bucket of HeroClix miniatures for playing Mage Knight, and they work great here as well. There always seems to be someone selling their collection on eBay for pennies on the dollar. And this is a great way to get a ready-made set of fantasy figures, all pre-painted, that you can combine with multiple games without breaking the bank. You may also have noticed that I substitute metal coins for the teensy cardboard coins furnished by the game. The only reason for the teensy cardboard renditions, in my opinion, was to help encourage you to buy the all-in package that included the miniatures pack, neoprene map, and the metal coins. Note that there are other games, such as Zia, around the same price point as Skyrim, that include metal coins. Buying generic metal coins lets me pay the freight once and use them in any game I want to. They look great, and they work great. Character progression. Characters progress by accumulating experience points until they level up, whereupon they get one special ability, for example, single-handed weapons, and one additional point of health, stamina, or magicka. Monsters get stronger as players promote, using a very nice, straightforward system of retiring weaker adversaries and introducing stronger ones. Characters develop organically, from having almost nothing to becoming legendary. While you have influence, much of a character's development occurs by finding various bits of kit and applying upgrades and enchantments to them. Much of this is by blind draw into the various card decks the game provides. The effect is that your character emerges gradually as you play through the game. A new spell just learned or an item just found might open up a whole new set of play options for your character, but by mid-game you may find that your character's game may have settled down, and as in real life, you have matured into what you will become. Then you can play the same character and the same campaign again and have a different sort of character emerge. After all, life is in fact like a box of chocolates. In summary, it might seem that comparing Skyrim to Gloomhaven might be reasonable. After all, they model large, almost living fantasy game worlds for you to explore. But the comparison ends there, as Gloomhaven is 90% tactical and maybe 10% about the world as a whole. Skyrim is just the opposite, as it is all about shaping the big picture by performing a plethora of quests, with tactical combat being mostly, but not entirely, secondary. Or you could compare Skyrim, the board game, to Skyrim, the computer game. Maybe a better comparison, but the board game offers a more concentrated version, offering a more social experience that can be played without sacrificing employment, school, and marriages. Maybe the best comparison I can make is with the old Avalon Hill game, Magic Realm. In both games, you play a single hero that may cooperate or compete with other players as they run their individual quests through the land. Skyrim is a faithful, approachable tabletop rendition of the computer version of Skyrim. It allows reasonably deep gameplay that seamlessly expands from solitaire to two-player to multiplayer in all its chapters and campaigns. While the execution is not perfect, it is good enough that players will have a lot of fun with it, and Skyrim lovers will have lots of fun with it. And as a longtime Skyrim lover, the board game version will have a permanent home on my game shelf and earn playing time on my game table. Thank you for visiting my channel. If you have enjoyed what I had to say, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button, notice button, and leave a comment. I really enjoy hearing from you guys, so please let me know what you think of Skyrim and what I had to say. For now, though, this is Paul, the Oaken Knight, wishing you all a pleasant evening. Bye for now.